I saw these things from when I was early on as a kid. I knew my mom's weaknesses. I knew that both of them had traumatic things within their families, traumatic things within their parents, with just mental illness. And I saw that. And from an early age, I thought, whatever I'm going to be, it's not that. That's like success. Whatever it is, I'm going to be the opposite.
Success is the opposite of what I grew up in.
Welcome back to another episode of The In-Between. I'm your host, Jenna, co-host, Matt.
Mr. Matt.
You always say, I'm your host, Matt, and this is my co-host, Jenna, so I just said it to you. And so here we are.
Take me down a peg or two.
Sorry.
We are co-hosts. Together hosting this show. There's no host and co-host. They're both co-hosts.
Both hosts, yes.
Happy to be back with you guys.
Yeah, happy to be back. So here at The In-Between, just a reminder, we kind of talk about a little bit of everything in between. Sports, faith, family, business. Today, I'm excited to dive into a topic that I feel like has been more prevalent in our lives in the past few years and the importance of it. But we're going to be talking about mental health and just in general with how mental health kind of goes hand in hand with business, being a business owner, why it's at the forefront of our success, like what we deem as success. Mental health has to be leading in the way of that just as much as revenue does. Like I want to be successful in taking care of myself.
Totally.
And taking care of past traumas and past, things
baggage
that could hold you back. So over the past few years, we've really dove into that just personally and put a lot of importance and priority on that. And I'm excited to kind of talk about it today, share some journeys and things we've learned along the way.
Yeah, I think mental health too has at least for me coming from having a life transformation situation happen in the church world, my relationship with God, and then you still deal with anxiety, you still deal with depression. And I kind of came from the school of thought,
because you played football.
You were
raised.
No, I was about to say, you can be essentially healed from anything once you're saved and you're following the right path. So you can start to almost beat yourself up and be on the wrong side of the field saying man, because I'm, doing the right thing, I shouldn't be dealing with this. And I am. So now I'm so alone. I'm so isolated. I must be the only one dealing with this. A good leader has to just get through it. And then when everyone sees me again, I'll be good. And that's my journey with mental health is I'm a crammer. I'm a stuffer.
That's what I was saying. But not that your parents are crammers and stuffers, but you've just kind of shared that how you were raised was channel it all into football.
Yeah.
Was in sports were elevated. And so you've even shared with you, that's how you let out aggression and that's how you let out
It's
things.
not the greatest. Working on that for sure. But yeah, I feel like football was a great avenue for me as a kid growing up when I would hit hardship and hit hard things that all kids go through. I channeled it in football. It was great because how did you channel it? I just hit people harder. Yeah. It was kind of an aggression thing. Some people go to a gym and punch on a punching bag. Some people go sit down with a counselor and really talk out things. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. Mental health, you're going to assess and go through things in life differently than I will and other people will. But the kicker is the traumas that we all deal with, losing a loved one, a family member tied up in addiction, wanting something so bad for someone else that they don't want it as much for themselves. Every one of us deals with those different, but the reality is we all deal with it. We all deal with the same things, the same hurts and letdowns and failures. And when you're trying to act like you have it together, when you have a good family, when you got this, it can be trying. It can be really tough. It can start to wear on you. And we talk a lot about being a whole leader. If you and I are not whole mind, body, spirit, soul, all of those tanks in the correct level, not one way, not my what I want to do with my body feels great, but my mind is so jacked up or my emotions are so jacked up or whatever it is. So what are some like, obviously we've all gone through trauma, some of our personal stories, like I've shared on the podcast, but my trauma was like self-inflicted, making bad decisions. And I found myself in a situation where I was looking at, 7 to 15 years in prison for some dumb things that I did. And I was depressed. I was like, my life's over before it even started. Mental health, where is your mind at? Because if you give up on anything in your mind, you will give up in real life. Like wherever you fixate and focus on, that's what's going to be the direction or the course that your compass is set to. So, I went through some trauma like that. I've also gone through trauma of losing loved ones. I've gone through trauma of losing loved ones abruptly and through terrible situations, which we'll talk about. I mean, my father-in-law, your dad was one of them. We lost him to suicide, and I've lost friends to suicide. I've lost friends to drug overdoses. I've lost a lot of people that I really still like wish they were here today, and you try to live your life the best you can in the light that those people are not on this planet anymore. So taking a little piece of your dad, taking a little piece of Alex, my buddy, taking a little piece of all these like traumas that I've dealt with, like shaped me into who I am. But I've realized I can't be a stuffer. Stuffing isn't healthy. It creates such a calloused heart, at least for me, where I wouldn't be empathetic to other things because I'm like, just get over it. Trust me, life will be better if you just get over it. And that doesn't help someone when they're in the midst of something and really actually need help. So I'm working on that. But how would you say, like, you react with mental health? Obviously, we've had some traumatic things happen in our marriage, and you want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think you and I are both very different in that. I know that you stuff. I tend to overflow.
Overprocess.
I tend to erupt. I don't know. But Matt's your, like, he kind of just is like, yeah, you just deal with it. Like, life's hard. Of course it's hard. We're going to get through it, I'm more so like, I'm going to, if it's, everyone around me is going to feel it in the house, and I've gotten better with that, as time's gone on, and I've gotten older as well. But, if you're just talking about how we process things and deal with things, that's definitely something. When we got married, that was different for us. Like, I had to like really pull things out of you, like, hey, you have to talk to me. You have to like tell me,
because if I thought it was something that was hard or was going to harm me, it's like a fight or flight. I've just been like, nope, it's not going to be a part of my life. I actually like cancel it out,
ignore it.
It never happened.
Yeah. Whereas for me, I'm like wailing. I'm emotional. I'm angry. That was one part, especially just having babies. And like dealing with the female body itself, hormones
with trauma mixed in with it.
Yes, same time. We lost my dad to suicide. We got the call 2 weeks after our firstborn was born. I remember I was holding an infant, like a newborn, and so for me, like, I think that compacted with hormones. It was like rage.
Yeah, very upset.
Like, I felt that for like a few years. I feel like I've just kind of come out, the hormones have leveled out with that. But Matt's just like, you're really like 0 to 1,000 in anger. You
were very angry for a while. Like, I was
and no one
angry,
would see that
but
except
I was
for
sad.
You.
Like, I was like, how are you so mad? Like, he's not even here. Like, how can you be so upset?
So for me, with my dad, my dad and I don't, like, my dad was my dad, but my dad did not raise me. My dad was with me from age 1 or birth to 5. But since, Charlie's age, at Charlie's age, our oldest, my parents got a divorce. They had joint custody for like a couple months. And after that, my dad moved away, and I really didn't see him again till I turned 18. Like,
because you wanted to see him, didn't you? Like,
I wanted to see him, but my mom...
You wanted to more so know about, like, you're 18
The biggest
now.
thing with my dad, and now that he's passed, it's hard to say and admit and believe, but, like, there's still things that I don't know about my parents and don't know about my dad. And now that he's passed, I may never know, But there's a lot of, like, mental health and layers that my parents never dealt with and traumas that they stuffed down. And then when they procreated, that generationally went on to me, and they never dealt with the things. And, when my parents separated and my mom got sole custody, it was because it was in, my best interest to not be with my dad. Like my dad he was an alcoholic. He did not know how to take care of finances. He was very irresponsible when it just came to things in his life. And he was younger, in the younger time. Like I re-met him in his 50s, which is just interesting.
Yeah.
So he was in his, probably late 20s, early 30s when, that's about right. When I was born, my mom was younger. My dad was older than her for sure. But anyways, nonetheless, there were just a lot of things they never did what we're doing right now.
Just discussing, just talking
about it. Like there's still things I don't know. There's still things my mom and I have yet to talk about when it comes to that, which is crazy. But it's honestly, if you have gone through traumatic things and you've experienced it, it's really hard to dig your way out of it and like continue to want to want better for your family, better for your kids. And not that it's easier said than done. That's what I mean by that. I think we would all say, well, I want to be better. Like of course I want my kids to have a better life, but to physically change the narrative and to like rewrite how the story is going to go,
break the curse,
and break curses and like make decisions that are in your best interest and not just yours, but like your kids and their kids and generations' best interests. That's a really, really hard thing to do when you've never seen it done. Yeah. It's really, really hard. Totally. So when we lost my dad, which was 5 years ago this year, I was holding our firstborn, and something about that, like to know, is that my dad was not well for a really long time. Do you remember when you and I got married and I went and visited them? Yeah, it was when my stepmom was still living. My stepmom told me, hey, I know you're going to come stay with us and you're going to visit, but I just want you to know your dad's not doing well. And by not doing well, he was a raging alcoholic. Like, legit. Like if you've ever seen a movie or you've been around someone who's an alcoholic,
it's hard.
He was an alcoholic.
Very hard.
He was addicted to just being drunk, and he was that, and very, very hard to like have conversations like we're having now with someone that's drunk predominantly all the time. And so I would either call him from Oklahoma, he lived in Florida, and like want to chat with him during that time, or when we went and visited. And it just never like could get to a level where I felt like he was all there. Yeah. So I'm like, why are we even? It just felt like, So it's not only just.
So 3 years before your dad passed, his wife, your stepmom, Deb, was killed in a car accident with Fallon.
Before she was killed, her and I had been in a lot of discussion about my dad, and kind of the same.
You and Deb.
And kind of this along the same lines that she was telling me. What was so hard for me to hear was the same thing that my mom was telling me when I was younger for years of like why I couldn't be around him or know him or see him. And that was just a hard pill to swallow, It's just like, oh my gosh, like 25 years have gone by and like we're still not better.
We're still doing
the same thing. What is going on here? And something about my dad is his dad was an alcoholic. Like he did share that with me when he was living. He was drinking at age 13, 14 and had been doing it his whole life. And so that was just the way of life for them. And I don't think he knew another way. I don't think he knew another way to deal with anxiety, the stress.
When life got hard.
When life gets hard, even the littlest things could trigger him to need to do that. And, still to this day, you and I, we socially drink. We socially drink. We're not. I've seen raging alcoholic. Like I've seen that. We are not that. It's a decision.
It's the same with drugs. It's the exact same. I've seen the best people in the world be controlled by drugs.
Being controlled by it.
Completely a slave to the decisions they've made. And then once you've made them, that's the new normal. Yeah. So every day your dad had to wake up and drink, not to get drunk, to get normal.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part. Like in any kind of addiction, the person who's addicted doesn't look at it that way. They look at it as, what are you talking about? I can't deal with life. I just need 3 drinks and then I'll be able to deal with it.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You're going to drive to the store after you've had? They don't think about that. That's the medicine. That's the addiction in your head, not just your body. Now you quit drinking, your body's physically going to crave some things, drugs, stuff like that. But the worst of it is in the beginning, like quitting cold turkey, getting over it, getting sober, like going into a facility.
The most sober I ever saw my dad was in the mornings. Yeah. And do you remember what he would do? He would shake. He would like want to. Oh yeah. He would.
I know. You know. It's just I hate remembering. Your dad was such a charming guy. That's what makes it even harder. Yeah. No one likes a drunk who's like angry all the time, right? Yeah. He loved, like, he did have a heart of gold, and that's why I believe what you say. Like, I don't even think he knew a better way. Yeah. And people like Deb, who were like, we would look at as like some of the best people in his life, then were taken. Yeah. How do you deal with trauma and addiction when you're already in it?
My stepdad, that's what happened. My stepmom passed tragically. She was killed
by a drunk driver.
Yeah, by a drunk driver. And then my dad was left to deal with all of that. And my stepmom passed in 2016, and then 2019, when I had Charlie, she was 2 weeks old, we got a call that they found my dad dead. Yeah, and he had killed himself in his house.
And he had just gotten a new job, hadn't reported to work. Someone did a wellness check, and
I think the hardest part.
Then we had to go down to Florida. Yeah, like within a day. Yeah, to clean up everything.
No, it wasn't
it was within a couple.
I had a newborn.
Within a couple days.
I remember I had just had a C-section, and I remember just literally my thoughts are like, I can't even go to the bathroom. Yeah, we can't bring this newborn. I can't even get out of this chair. How am I going to get on an airplane?
You have to shift right into dealing with someone who's passed then too, like planning the funeral.
Yeah, it was a lot.
I did your dad's funeral.
You did the
what
service.
A mess. Yeah. I couldn't even finish. Yeah. I told everyone, never ask me to do anything like that ever again. I love representing. And that time I was just coming out of the ministry world, so I still had my credentials, licensing. They were like, can you do the funeral? It's like, man, when you get trained to be a pastor, you do weddings and funerals, but like funerals suck. Like no one likes doing a funeral, especially under like circumstances that just aren't fully clear, you know?
Totally. Yeah. So it was a lot to unpack. And it still is a lot to unpack, I think, still to this day. But, you know, I think for the hardest, and we're just going back to that like piece of like anger and rage, is there's a part of me that the way that just God made my mind, the way that I have just grown up and had this mentality is, you know, I saw these things from when I was early on as a kid, Charlie's age. You know what I mean? I was told these things. I knew these things. I knew my mom's weaknesses. I knew that both of them had traumatic things happen, traumatic things within their families, you know, traumatic things within their parents, with just mental illness and you know, their own struggles, both of my parents. And I saw that, and from an early age, I thought, whatever I'm going to be, it's not that. That's it.
You ran the opposite direction.
That's like success. Whatever it is, I'm going to be the opposite.
Success is the opposite of what I grew up in.
When you're in your late 20s, early 30s now, and you are sitting with a parent, you know, like even before my dad passed, it's very almost like impossible to not feel this like anger and rage, to know that like you are actually the parent in the room. Like you are actually, when you're sitting with a parent who's sobbing, like I've sat with my dad and hearing him break down like a child and say, I don't know, you know, why I can't be better. I don't know how you turned out this way. I don't know. Like, you know,
I remember
everything that comes with that.
He was so proud of you, and like he couldn't even figure it out. Like near the end of his life, like how did you
And I think he had just a lot of probably regrets on his end. He knew he wasn't a good parent, you know, all the things. But that part of you, like you're still very motivated to do better, but it's almost impossible to not feel that like rage to be like, why couldn't you just make it? Because now I'm a parent. Yeah. And for me, I can't imagine. Like I can't imagine. Like not wanting and just not wanting it. Like, I think everyone wants it deep down, but like having the courage to actually like sacrifice and say no to the things that my flesh might want, or the things that I think are going to be good for me, then they're not, for the betterment of at least my kids.
At the
like,
very least, your kids.
Yeah.
But at the max, for you too.
Yeah.
Making a healthy decision is always going to benefit you.
Totally.
But so many times that's why I'm a stuffer. It's like, I don't want the kids to know things are going wrong. I want them to think of like, daddy's got it together, not because I'm a superhero, but because when things aren't together, I want them to see those areas of vulnerability and be like, dad's normal. Like, wow. But like, I don't want them to see me like melting every time something bad happens and we have a hard conversation. I don't want them to see you as weak either. Yeah. So there's kind of this balance of like, you know, you're not like, I firmly do believe that you can be a victim in a situation, but you are not a victim in life. And I know that's easier said than done. And I know some people would be like, say that to the person who's homeless on the side of the street. I understand that. But I also have friends and have lived seasons of my life, not necessarily of homelessness, but just about, where you didn't wake up and that was the case. The next day, it was usually a series of decisions and choices that were made that led you down a path to now, how the heck did I get here? It can also lead you down a path of like, man, how did I get here? Life feels really good right now because you made the right decisions in the right times. And those right decisions aren't going to be the easy ones. They're always going to be like the more difficult, against the grain type things. But that's what I talked about in a previous episode, getting a word like for your purpose, like standing on your North Star. Yeah. How did you turn out that way? Because like life can be very, very dark, but you know what? We serve a good God and like he's going to help us through that. And like, I think some people just need to hear that sometimes. Yeah. But it doesn't change the sting. It doesn't change the hurt. It doesn't change literally. I feel closer to your dad now than I did when he was alive. It's so wild. Like I think about your dad all the time. And my regret could be, why didn't I think about him that much in those 3 years when he was still alive? And we did. We tried. We had many talks where we were like, if he doesn't change, this isn't our fault. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what, it wasn't healthy, I feel like, for we wanted like there was a part of me that was like, I have to let this go a little bit because I'm not.
You shouldered all the responsibility of him changing.
Responsible
and his
for
life
him.
being better.
So to get that call and just know that it's like done. You know,
it
and
was
it's over.
The saddest, but
like,
it was almost like weight came off our shoulder because I was like, oh God, now I don't have to wonder if it's going to happen. Like that was so sad. But I'll never forget picking up the dog from the groomer. Ryan called me, which Ryan was Deb's daughter, is Deb's daughter. So she was very much connected with the last trauma. And we were down there helping the family and go through the trauma ourselves last time. And I knew it was Ryan calling, and I was like, Ryan doesn't call me on Facebook. She's calling me. And I answered the phone, and she said, it's Joe. And that's all she said. And I'll replay that day. But like, more so I replay the day of like when Deb and Fallon passed and you and I were down at your dad's house and he was just in shambles and we just hugged him in the kitchen. I'll never forget that. Like, and we were scared for his life at that time because we were like, he's unstable. We don't know what's going to happen.
Do you remember we had to be like, do you have guns in the house?
We stayed in the room. We stayed in the room that had the guns in them because we didn't want him to come in.
So crazy.
But
you know, I'm in my 20s, you're in your early 30s, so even like having those conversations, that was just so,
it's just really hard because you know, Charlie hasn't ever really like asked a whole lot about her grandpa and she knows. She doesn't know the situation. She knows that he's not on earth anymore and that it's sad, and that's about what she knows. But as far as like getting past mental health or like getting some kind of remedy for it, obviously there's lots of things out there with doctors and medication.
I went to therapy.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
I went to therapy for a good amount of time. I'm not currently in therapy anymore, but I was for, I would say about a year and a half, if not longer, around that time.
And those were heavy sessions. I remember when you'd come out of them, like it was like decompressed for like a day
I was like, I'm wrecked for the rest of the day. I think anything, I would tell a person, you need to do whatever you need to do. That's going to help your mental health. And so for some people, it is therapy. I'm also a runner, and like being a runner and just running is therapy for me. I know some people think that's crazy, but there's so much connection. And, you know, I've run 19. I just finished
Come on.
my 19th half marathon.
Come on.
I've run a full marathon. You know, there's something to be said about being able to run a race and a course with endurance like that, that many times. And that's because there are things in my life that I've been able to run through and have endurance for and still made it to the finish line and on the other side. And so anytime I run, it's anchored to a purpose. You know, it's anchored to something that kind of keeps me going and know that there's people on the course cheering you on. There's people at the finish line. There is a lot in sight. The run is not going to last forever. You're not going to be in pain forever. I love the moments of pain in a workout because I'm like, no, this is good.
No, yeah.
This is
it's
good.
So good.
This is good for me.
I'm crazy. I like, it might not be healthy or not, but when I'm like in a race or on the bike or anything and it's really hard, but I know like, oh, this is when like if you push through, like one, I'm going to get the most growth. Two, I'm going to make up the most time. I literally think about when I can't do it, like when my body's completely quitting, I think about like my friend Alex, who died from an accidental drug overdose, had his whole life ahead of him, just so sad because of that. Like his family has come to like know Jesus and things. So I love that. But I think about Alex and I think about your dad. So I'd always think about like, what if I could push super hard and because I pushed hard enough, maybe they'd come back to life. Like it's such a silly thought, but it's literally when your body is aching and like you're at your end, that all shuts down if your mind is even like sharper than that. So if you're fixing on that thought, that's all you're thinking about. You're not thinking about your hamstrings cramping up or any of the stuff. You're just getting through and surviving, right? At the end of it, you know, it's always sad because you run the race and you finish and you're happy, but they're not alive, right? But it's like, it still anchors you to having pieces of, I mean, like, everything wasn't perfect when your dad was here on earth. Like we wished it would have been, but like that doesn't change the situation and what we were able to learn and grow from and still grow. And is there going to be healthy conversations about suicide once our kids are old enough to understand what that is? You better believe it. It's not something anyone ever wants to talk about. It's something that directly affected who was your grandfather, Charlie or Goldie. Like we're going to talk about it. It's just like no one wants to.
For me, it's knowing it's not just like my dad. It wasn't just a suicide. The suicide did not. I know suicide affects like many different types of people have walked through this, and you might have a loved one that you lost to suicide that you're like, I never saw that coming. They were the happiest person in the world.
Could do that.
Yeah, you can do that. For me, it's a hard conversation because I know that my dad had his struggles. I know that my dad had mental health issues. I know that he had mental illness. And I know that that was something that was always on my mind was like, God, just please, like, if we can just hold on a little longer and I know we can get through this. I know that we can, you know, how many letters we wrote him and notes and just all the things. So
we still have them. When we went to go clean out his stuff, we kept a lot of that stuff just because it kind of came full circle. It was like, well, at least he kept it.
Yeah.
The letters we put in his Bible and devotionals we sent him and stuff like that. Though, like I found courage and hope in knowing that like the bookmark had been changed. Like maybe he opened it, maybe he read it. Like it's not your job to convert and change someone, but it is our job to be the light, right?
And just like, be there for him.
And he loved us. Like he was always asking us. He was always like, I still have the voicemail on my phone. He called us at the hospital when Charlie was born. Do I got a granddaughter yet? Oh my God, she's beautiful. I'm like, just like thinking about that, you know? So what can we take from all that? What can our viewers or our listeners are like, okay, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's just like dealing with being let down, being passed up by a promotion at work, feeling like you're worthless. Like whatever it is, there is an avenue, and the avenue, like Jenna said, it's what's going to fill up your soul tank, your mind, body, spirit, emotions, what makes you happy. Maybe it's going and getting a cup of coffee and going for a walk.
It's a little things.
And maybe it's not praying. Maybe it's actually arguing with God on your walk about what it is. Guys, he's not mad. Like none of that takes him by surprise. Some of my best times I've ever heard from God were when I was so angry and so frustrated. So you can be angry and go drink, go use drugs, go kill yourself. You know what I mean? Or you can like literally deal with the things that are happening, because dealing with it not only makes you stronger, but the next time someone else is going to be dealing with it, it's going to be crippling their life. You're going to be a beacon of hope for them. So I don't have any like 1, 2, 3. This is what you do for mental health.
Well, let's just talk about what we do.
Yeah.
For me personally, my mental health, I know that I've had to like learn myself at a more intimate level over the past couple years. And I know what I need and my rhythms and what they need to, how they need to be set and what I need to be well in a day. And so for me, I have to wake up early. When I wake up late, it's just
you're
like not good. It's just not good. I wake up early. It's such a rhythm of mine that I know my soul needs. I know my mental health needs. I like to wake up before everyone else in my house is. I like to get my workout in. I like to read. I like to listen to music. I like to have my coffee. I like to have these little things along the way that really do set me up right and set my mind right.
Totally.
You know, on how it should be fixated so that I'm my best self when I come to the people I love. And I'm getting the people I love ready to go out the door in the morning. And I know that without that, I'm not going to be a happy person. And that's just me. I just know myself. And then, but that's just a daily rhythm. And even at night, I'm the same way. I kind of have my nightly routine where I like to be by myself a little bit for just for a little bit, but then I like to come back together and, you know, have our time together. Of course, when the kids go to bed, and I like to have time with my kids is really important too. When they're out of school, like I have to have these pockets of time that are protected. I would say like the hours of like 5 to 7 p.m. are protected and 8 p.m. are protected for my kids. Yeah. Like those are the windows of time that you're not going to touch just because that's, you know, on a weekday, that's when I want to be fully present for them. And I know sometimes, you know, work can be long and all the things and you feel like you have only leftovers left at the end, but like mentally, I know that I have to like rally. I call it rally. I got to rally myself in the afternoon.
A 20-minute reset.
Yes, of whatever I need to bring my best self to those kids, you know, in the evening and they get their best mama. But, and that's just daily rhythm. But let's just talk about like life when things get hard. Yeah. When, business is hard, when finances are hard, when, relationships are rocky, like family relationships that, you know, we still walk through the rocky times when what is happening around you is you feel like it's happening to you, you know, and it's just the being rubbed off of things that are going wrong. You know, like how do you deal with that? How do you allow yourself not to get brought down with it? How do you allow yourself not to get stuck in that rut?
For me, because I'm a stuffer, like I'm tempted to stuff it. But like knowing myself a little bit more in the last year and a half, it's not like I do this and it goes away. Now I just acknowledge it and I do talk about it, not to give it power in my life, but to call a spade and say, I am depressed right now. I'm not a depressed person, but I'm feeling depressed right now. So I thank you that in the next hour, my mind is clear. My heart is pure. I'm trying to do the right thing and I just need some help. And usually it's me talking either to God, to you, trying not to stuff it, but calling it what it is. When things are exposed, they lose their power. Like, I mean, that's like you always hear about the secret affair someone has. And then the minute it's brought to light, of course, there's a divorce, there's destruction, but the affair is dead. Like it's been exposed and it's probably not anything anymore. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that like, I mean, sometimes it keeps going. I'm just saying, when you expose something, you can't act like it doesn't exist anymore. Totally. Yeah. When you put something on the table, it's not like it's not there anymore. Everyone sees it now. So you have to do something with it. You have to either say, wow, that's a cute thing that's on the table, or take it off the table, deal with it, throw it in the trash, whatever you need to do.
I feel like you've come a long way within that, because when we got married, like it was almost just like, oh, it's not important. Oh, it's going to be weak to talk about that.
Because I came from looking at serious time in prison and I had to learn to just shut up and figure it out. And I felt like those were my only two options until God came into my life. I felt like, man, how do people do this? Knowing in the back of your mind that I'm waiting to be sent away for 15 years. Like I'm not even to the place where I'm going to be living for 15, like all the things that go around. So when we lose someone or a client disappoints us or something, it is like 0.5 out of 100 in terms of important to me. It's not that important, and that's why I'm a stuffer. Everything,
not a death. When you say when we
nothing
lose
is
someone.
like nothing is like as bad as like how you feel when you're depressed and you're maybe suicidal. Like when I was in jail, I was definitely suicidal. Like you don't really want to continue going because obviously it's a nightmare what you think you're living. But the sad part is if your dad would have realized that it wasn't a nightmare, it was like a nightmare for him that he kept reliving over and over, and we were sucked into it because we were close to him. The fact of the matter is, like, we loved seeing your dad. Like when he came to our wedding, when he came, like I called your dad and asked his permission to marry you, and he was like, "Why?" Like basically, like because he knew he hadn't been in your life, and that blew him away. That I even like had one like the guts to call him someone that I've never even met before. Like, hey, I know you don't know me.
Yeah.
What was I supposed to say? You barely know your daughter. You know what I mean? Like, but like, I'm in love with your daughter. Want you to be at our wedding. Would love your blessing, and can't wait to be a part of the family. And I was in the parking lot. I was working at Best Buy at the time. Before my shift, I was on the phone. And he's like, "Man, I can't wait to meet you." So it's just like, you know, you hang on to those things. But like life doesn't have to be defined by the tragedy that strikes you. It can be defined by how you respond to it. And it doesn't mean it's good. It just means good is going to come from it. So that's kind of how
That's so good.
But if you have that, and I highly recommend, we are not counselors. We are not like licensed medical professionals. We are just business owners and moms and dads that try to get by in life just like every one of our listeners and viewers. But if that is something where you're definitely like considering like, hey, I've considered taking my life or whatever, please get help. Like the hotline numbers, somebody will talk to you. You may feel like no one in the world wants to talk to you. Someone wants to talk to you. Someone wants to talk you off the ledge just so you can understand the concept that somebody cares. Yeah. Somebody more than you think. Because when you're at the end of your rope, I know how it feels. It's almost like because no one cares as much as you care about doing this one thing you're about to do. Yeah. So anyway, that's it. That's what I got on mental health. Still feels like spaghetti up there, but you know. And if you're seeking a doctor and like medicine has helped you, I am not like, hey, this is a Christian guy, he's anti-medicine. Please take your meds in faith, knowing that when you're doing them, that is creating a more well-rounded version of yourself. And I promise you, if you're praying throughout going on your medication and it's not what you're supposed to be on, you're going to have this feeling on the inside of you like, really shouldn't be doing this. I don't know why. The doctor told me I should. Those are the times when you're like, people are like, they're crazy. They got off their meds. Maybe they were supposed to. Maybe they weren't. So you need to listen to wisdom. But that's how we're dealing with it.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome. Well, we're excited to jump into our next episode here. Thanks for joining us today. I know this was a heavy topic and subject, but
heavy topic, but going to be a great day. We'll see you in the next episode.